Fannie Mae ANSI update number 139, page 44. B4-1 period 3-03, neighborhood section of the appraisal report, April 15, 2014. Introduction. This topic contains information on reviewing the neighborhood section of the appraisal report form, including overview, neighborhood analysis, degree of development and growth rate, trend of neighborhood property values, demand/supply, and marketing time. Market conditions addendum to the appraisal report, Form 1004 MC. Price range and predominant price. Over improvements. Age, range, and predominant age. Present land use. Overview. Neighborhood characteristics and trends influence the value of 1 to 4 unit residences. Therefore, an analysis of the subject's property's neighborhood is a key element in the appraisal process. As a reminder, Fannie Mae purchases mortgages secured by properties in all neighborhoods and in all areas, as long as the property is acceptable as security for the mortgage. Something marketability, it's blocked. Neighborhood analysis. Fannie Mae's appraisal report forms and guidelines do not require the appraiser to rate or judge the neighborhood. Fannie Mae requires the appraiser to perform an objective neighborhood analysis by identifying neighborhood boundaries, neighborhood characteristics, and the factors that affect the value and marketability of properties in the neighborhood. Page 45. Neighborhood boundaries. The appraiser should provide an outline of the neighborhood boundaries, which should be clearly delineated using north, south, east, and west. These boundaries may include, but are not limited to, streets, legally recognized neighborhood boundaries, waterways, or other natural boundaries that define the separation of one neighborhood from another. Appraisers should not reference a map or other addendum as only example of the neighborhood boundaries. Neighborhood characteristics. These can be addressed by the type of structures, detached, attached, and architectural styles in the neighborhood, such as row or townhouse, colonial, ranch, or Victorian. Current land use, such as single-family residential, commercial, or industrial. Typical site size, such as 10,000 square feet or 2.00 acre. Or street patterns or design, such as one-way street, cul-de-sac, or court. Factors that affect the value and marketability of properties in the neighborhood. These can be addressed by such things as the proximity of the property to employment and amenities, employment stability, appeal to the market, changes in land use, access to public transportation, and adverse environmental influences. The appraiser must fully consider all of the value influencing characteristics in the neighborhood and arrive at an appropriate neighborhood description and opinion of value for the property, even if this requires more extensive research for particular property types or for properties in certain geographic locations. An appraiser must perform a neighborhood analysis in order to identify the area that is subject to the same influences as the property being appraised, based on the actions of typical buyers. The result of a neighborhood analysis enable the appraiser not only to identify the factors that influence the value of properties in the neighborhood, but also to define the area from which to select the market data needed to perform a sales comparison analysis. In performing a neighborhood analysis, the appraiser collects pertinent data, conducts a visual inspection of the neighborhood to observe its physical characteristics and determine its boundaries, and identifies land uses and any signs that the land uses are changing. Fannie Mae expects the appraiser and the lender's underwriter to be aware of the varying conditions that characterize different types of neighborhoods. Conditions that are typical in certain neighborhoods may not be present in other neighborhoods. This does not mean that the existence of certain types of conditions or characteristics are unacceptable. Rather, it is an Page 46. Indication that they must be viewed in context with the nature of the neighborhood in which the security property is located. For example, some neighborhoods consist of a variety of property types that have different uses. It is not uncommon to find properties that have mixed uses, such as residential properties that also have child care facilities, doctor or dental offices, and other types of business or commercial uses. The presence of mixed use properties or a variety of property types within a neighborhood should be viewed as a neighborhood characteristic that the appraiser considers when performing the neighborhood analysis and describing the neighborhood boundaries. The appraiser must consider the influence of market forces, including but not limited to economic, governmental, and environmental factors on a property values in the neighborhood. Economic forces that must be considered include such things as the existence of vacant or boarded up properties in the neighborhood and the level of essential local support services. Examples of governmental forces should be taken into consideration, including the regulations, laws, and taxes that are imposed on properties. Environmental forces that must be considered include, among other things, the existence of a hazardous waste site or near the property, and the proximity of a property to an airport. Certain other factors that are not appraisal factors, such as the racial or ethnic composition of a neighborhood or the age or sex of the individuals who live in a particular neighborhood, must not be considered in the evaluation process. The appraiser must determine, analyze, and consider factors in the valuation process based on his or her identification of all forces or factors that have the potential to influence the value of the property. The appraiser must report neighborhood conditions in factual, specific terms and be impartial and specific in describing favorable or unfavorable factors in a neighborhood. If an appraiser can demonstrate by market evidence that a characteristic has an effect on the value or marketability of the properties in the neighborhood, he or she must consider it in the valuation process. The appraiser must not make unsupported assumptions or interject personal opinion or perceptions about market forces or other factors that may or may not affect the use and value of a property. For example, a property located in an older neighborhood can be as sound as an investment as a property located in a new neighborhood. Degree of development and growth rate. The degree of development of a neighborhood, which is referred to as built up on the appraisal report forms, is the percentage of the available land in the neighborhood that has been improved. The degree of development of a neighborhood may indicate whether a particular property is residential in nature, When reviewing an appraisal on a property located in a rural or relatively undeveloped area, the lender should focus on the characteristics of the property, zoning, and the present land use to determine whether the property should be considered residential in nature. For example, if the